Hello. Welcome to today's story. This video will help you improve your English listening skills and pronunciation. I suggest you pause after each sentence and try to repeat what you hear. This story is about Harper, a talented baker in New York, starts receiving mysterious notes praising her healing bread. But when the messages reveal family secrets only she should know, she realizes someone from her past is watching her every move. What does this stranger want, and how do they know her deepest family truths? Are you ready? Let's dive into the story.
My name is Harper. I am 28 years old. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I work as a head baker at a small artisan bakery called Golden Grain. Every morning at 4:30, I unlock the heavy wooden door of our bakery. The smell of yesterday's flour still hangs in the air. I tie my apron around my waist and begin my daily ritual. First, I check the sourdough starter. Then I measure ingredients for the day's bread. My hands know this work by heart. I have worked at Golden Grain for 3 years now. The owner, Mrs. Chun, hired me when I was struggling to find my place in the city. She saw something in my baking that I could not see myself. She trusted me with her recipes and her customers. My life feels simple and peaceful. I wake up early, bake bread, serve customers, and go home to my small apartment. I do not ask for much. I just want to create something beautiful with my hands each day. But last Tuesday morning, everything changed. I found a small white envelope tucked under our cash register. My name was written on the front in careful handwriting. Inside, there was a simple note that said, "Thank you for the bread that heals. Your grandmother's touch lives in your hands." I stared at the paper for a long time. Nobody knew about my grandmother's baking. She died when I was 12. She taught me how to feel the dough and listen to the yeast. But I never told anyone at the bakery about her. I showed the note to Mrs. Chun when she arrived that morning. She read it and smiled. She told me that customers sometimes sent sweet messages. She said I should feel proud of my work. But something felt strange about this note. The words felt too personal, too knowing. I kept the envelope in my apron pocket all day. During my lunch break, I read it again. The handwriting looked familiar, but I could not place it. I decided to ignore it and focus on my work. The next morning, another envelope waited for me. This one said, "Your bread reminds me of Sunday mornings when she would sing while kneading. You have her gift." My hands started shaking as I read those words. My grandmother did sing while she baked. She hummed old songs from her childhood in Italy. I was the only one who remembered this. My parents never talked about her baking or her singing after she died. I looked around the empty bakery. All the windows were locked. The door had been secure when I arrived. Someone had been here during the night, or maybe they came very early in the morning. But who could it be? That afternoon, I called my mother. I asked her if she had told anyone about grandmother's baking habits. My mother sounded confused. She said she rarely spoke about my grandmother to strangers. She asked me why I was bringing up these old memories. I decided not to tell her about the notes. My mother still felt sad when we talked about grandmother. I did not want to worry her with strange messages from unknown people. The third note arrived on Thursday. It was longer than the others. It said, "She used to save the burnt pieces of bread for the birds outside her kitchen window. You do the same thing. Some gifts skip generations, but they never disappear." I dropped the envelope on the floor. I do save the burnt pieces for the birds. Every evening, I take the damaged bread outside and leave it near the small tree behind our bakery. I started doing this without thinking. It felt natural and right. But nobody watched me do this. I always went out alone after we closed. The alley was always empty. How could someone know about this habit? I spent the whole day feeling nervous and distracted. I burned 2 loaves of rye bread because I could not concentrate. Mrs. Chen asked me if I was feeling sick. I told her I was just tired, but that was not true. That evening, I stayed late at the bakery. I wanted to see if someone would come to leave another note. I sat in the dark storage room and watched the front windows. I waited for 2 hours, but nobody came. The next morning, there was no envelope waiting for me. I felt relieved but also curious. Maybe the person had stopped sending messages. Maybe they got tired of this strange game. But on Monday, the 4th note arrived. This one made my heart race. It said, "The recipe for her healing bread is written in the old cookbook she left you. Page 47. You have not looked at it in years, but it is time." I almost dropped my coffee cup. I did have my grandmother's cookbook. It was sitting on a shelf in my apartment, covered in dust. I had not opened it since I moved to New York. I was too afraid of the memories it would bring back. After work that day, I went straight home. I climbed on a chair and reached for the old brown cookbook. The cover was worn and soft from years of use. I could smell my grandmother's kitchen on the pages. I turned to page 47 with trembling fingers. There was a recipe for pain della guarigine, healing bread. My grandmother had written notes in the margins in Italian. At the bottom of the page, she had added a line in English, "For Harper, who will carry our family's gift." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. I had forgotten that my grandmother sometimes wrote in English for me. She wanted me to understand her recipes when I was older. She believed I would become a baker like her. The next morning, I tried to make the healing bread recipe. The ingredients were simple: flour, water, salt, yeast, and honey. But the technique was different from anything I had learned. The dough needed to rest longer. The kneading rhythm was slower and more gentle. When the bread finished baking, it smelled exactly like my childhood memories. Warm, sweet, and somehow magical. I took a small piece to taste. It was the best bread I had ever made. I put the loaf in our display case with a small sign that said, "Healing Bread Limited Edition." Within 2 hours, every slice was sold. Customers told me it reminded them of their own grandmothers. Some people bought extra loaves to share with sick friends. That afternoon, the 5th note appeared. It said, "You found the recipe. Now you understand. Your grandmother visits you every morning when you bake. She is proud of the woman you have become. This will be my last message. Keep making the healing bread. The world needs what you can give." I read the note 3 times. Then I noticed something I had missed before. The handwriting was not from a stranger. It was my own handwriting, but from many years ago. I recognized the way I used to write my letter G when I was younger. I ran to my apartment and found an old journal from high school. I compared the handwriting. It was definitely mine, but I could not remember writing these notes. I felt confused and scared. That evening, I called my mother again. I told her about the notes and the recipe. She listened quietly as I described everything that had happened. When I finished talking, my mother was silent for a long moment. Then she told me something that changed everything. She said that after my grandmother died, I went through a very difficult time. I was only 12, and I missed her terribly. For several months, I would write letters to my grandmother and hide them around the house. I would forget about writing them, but my mother would find them later. The doctors said it was my way of dealing with grief. I was trying to keep my grandmother alive through writing. Eventually, I stopped doing it and forgot about those difficult months. My mother thought I might be doing something similar now, during a stressful time in my life. She said that sometimes our minds find ways to help us remember important things we have forgotten. I thought about what she said. Maybe I had been leaving these notes for myself without realizing it. Maybe part of me knew that I needed to reconnect with my grandmother's memory and her recipes. The idea felt strange, but it also felt right. I had been feeling lonely in New York. I missed my family and my childhood. Maybe my unconscious mind was trying to heal this sadness. Over the next few weeks, I continued making the healing bread every day. Our customers loved it. Some people came specifically asking for Harper's healing bread. They said it made them feel better when they were sick or sad. Mrs. Chun was amazed by the success. She asked me to teach her the recipe, and I agreed. I told her about my grandmother and how the recipe had been hidden in an old cookbook. I also started looking through the rest of my grandmother's recipes. Each page brought back memories of cooking together in her small kitchen. I remembered her patient voice teaching me how to measure flour and test yeast. I decided to add more of her recipes to our bakery menu. We started making her Italian cookies and sweet breads. Customers began calling our bakery the place with the healing touch. 1 month after the last note, I found a new envelope. But this time, I remembered writing it. I had woken up very early and felt compelled to write myself a message. I wanted to remember this feeling of connection with my grandmother. The note said, "You are exactly where you belong. Keep baking with love." I smiled as I read my own words. They felt true and comforting. I still work at Golden Grain Bakery. I still wake up at 4:30 every morning. But now I understand that I am not just making bread. I am continuing a family tradition that connects me to my grandmother and to all the people who taste my baking. Every morning, when I knead the dough for the healing bread, I think about my grandmother's hands. I imagine her standing next to me, humming her old Italian songs. I feel her love in the warm dough and in the sweet smell of honey and yeast. Sometimes the most important messages we need to hear come from deep inside ourselves. Sometimes we have to forget something in order to remember it properly. Sometimes healing happens one loaf at a time, one customer at a time, one memory at a time. I keep my grandmother's cookbook open on the counter now. Every day, I learn something new from her handwritten notes. Every day, I feel more connected to the woman who taught me that baking is not just about feeding people's bodies, but also about feeding their hearts. The healing bread continues to bring people comfort and joy. And every evening, I still save the burnt pieces for the birds outside. Some traditions are too important to break.
If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment and tell us what you think about Harper's journey. Practicing English through stories like this one will help improve your listening skills every day.